This is not the Church of Emmanuel, Christ of Latter-day Saints, of Joseph Smith. This is the Church of Jesus Christ. When we remove the Lord's name, Emmanuel, from the name of his church, we inadvertently remove him as the central focus of our worship and our lives. So imagine my delight when I was led recently to a new insight. With the help of two Hebrew scholars, I learned that one of the Hebraic meanings of the word Israel is "let God prevail." Imagine my delight when I was led recently to a new insight. I learned that one of the Hebraic meanings of the word Israel is "let God prevail."
Travis, my good soul. So it's the last day of the year. I saw a Mormon channel by two guys that are trying to be faith promoting about the church, obviously. And apparently the major discussion that Mormons are concerned with these days as to whether or not President Russell Marion Nelson is reliable as a prophet or whether he is infallible. And so they were discussing this. And they're doing wacky thumbnail pictures. And had lots and lots of views. I'd never heard of them before, but they're faith promoting, and so YouTube promotes them. Doesn't promote me, promotes them. And so I thought I'd do my version of it to show that I can get a lot of views too, right, YouTube? You wouldn't censor my channel and my videos. Not at all, even though the church, through Google, pays your paychecks. The keystone of the church is supposed to be the Book of Mormon. Benson said it. And so I guess it must be true. He's a living prophet of Jesus. Oops. Yeah, that's the blatant, obvious elephant, or shall we say dinosaur, in the room. The Book of Mormon says it's in the learning of the Jews. Joseph Smith said it's in the learning of the Jews. And so, wait a minute. If our founder brings out a book and says it's our keystone and it says it's in the learning of the Jews, and Joseph Smith confirms that yes, this is in the learning of the Jews, how the hell did we become Christian? How the hell did Jesus become our Christ? What happened? Oh, right, Brigham Young. It's blatantly obvious. This is not Joseph's church. And so everything this church does is an outright, blatant lie. It is a deception. You go through the church news. Well, I go through the church news. If you're listening, you listen to those videos that I do during the weekdays. And everything is wrong. Everything is false. Everything is deceptive. Everything is a con. Everything is a scam. Everything is criminal. When they're speaking with foreign terrorists, Mormons cheer. Yay! Church is being spread all over the world. It's because of this incorrect faith. It's a wrong feeling to have, Mormons. The Book of Mormon testifies that this church is wrong, and Mormons reject it. reject the Book of Mormon, of which they promote as Christian with Jesus. That's abominable. That's what Joseph Smith was talking about in verse 19 of the visionary accounts. And so, yeah, President Russell Marion Nelson is a fraud. He's a false prophet. Oh, hey, they were prophesied to be in the latter days. Isn't that interesting? Isn't it interesting also that his baby name meaning for Russell Marion means Lucifer? Lucifer is the head of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The Book of Mormon says that Lucifer would be the head of the great and abominable church in the latter days. Huh. Well, that's interesting. Well, that would suggest the Book of Mormon is prophetic. Amazing. But Mormons can't believe it. They have to deny the Book of Mormon. They have to reject the Book of Mormon in order to maintain their spiritual witness, faith-promoting feelings. And so, when I was working on the revision of the footnotes for the church, we were deeply scolded, prematurely scolded in advance, pre-scolded, and severely counseled and urged and threatened not to put our own opinions and feelings in the footnotes. And they were concerned that if such a thing were to sneak through, that in some future day, a president of the church would get up at the pulpit of conference and make the mistake of using that incorrect opinion put in by one of the Mormons. This would damage the church. It would humiliate the president of the church at the pulpit of conference. It would put the church at risk of being accused of being false. And so we were scolded severely to make sure that nobody made that error to put the church in jeopardy, to put the president of the church at risk for being exposed as a fraud. And so President Nelson takes over in 2018, and he announces he's working with our enemies, Russia, to destroy America, to cause Armageddon. He does away with home teaching. He tells us that his keys are the keys of Peter, not Moses, for the presidency. He tells us that the translation of Israel is let God prevail. Does away with home teaching. Or did I say that already? It says that Jesus is the chief cornerstone of the cornerstone. Says that Jesus is angry with the name of Joseph Smith's church. Tells us we need to yoke ourselves to Jesus. Tells us that the birth of Jesus was because of Heavenly Father raping his underage daughter, Mary. You know, Nelson has utterly humiliated himself at the pulpit of conference. And with the Let God Prevail, guess what they did? They had a church segment following conference, so separate than conference, in which they showed, rather than attribute it to two Hebrew scholars, because this was the Hebrew scholar who put the Hebrew in there. But the church rejected it and put an opinion called an IE. This was in the original one. The 1979 edition of the footnotes. And so the church was saying that Nelson got it from the footnotes. That's exactly what they scolded us in 2000 not to do. We were told to remove all of those IEs and ORs. And oops. President Russell Marion Nelson gets up at the pulpit of conference and exposes himself to the whole world who would watch that he isn't even a translator, that he is a fraud, because he gave the white supremacist definition of Israel. But none of that is necessary when you understand that the Book of Mormon is in the learning of the Jews. Anybody who says something to the contrary, whether it's, well, Jesus is in the text. So, Jesus is in the text of the Gospels. That was written by a Jew too. That doesn't mean that it's Christian. Christian hadn't even been conceived when the Jew wrote it. So many anachronisms that they can't even see the anachronisms in the Book of Mormon. Because it means the Book of Mormon, like the Bible, is not literal history. It contains historical people and places and events, but it is not literal history. It was specifically written as prophetic material for the latter days of the Jews, and they gave us the dates through symbolic coding in many instances. John the Revelator gave it directly to us with star dates. And it's there in the Book of Mormon. And so it doesn't matter what defense Mormons attempt to use. It's all wrong. It doesn't matter if you say, well, the prophets are good people. Well, you lie. They're not. They're lying to us about the Book of Mormon, about Joseph Smith. How can you be a good person when you're lying about somebody else? When you're promoting a church claiming that it's a succession from somebody that it's not? That doesn't make you a good person. You're lying to me. You can't say that the church is giving charity. The whistleblower exposed the church is hoarding money. They're not giving charity. They give to corporations to pay their paychecks, not to the poor and the needy, sick and the afflicted. They do not give anything in charity. They hoard. And those corporations, there's a quid pro quo going on. It's a business deal. The church makes an extra profit from it. They retain the gift. And so the talks, yeah, sorry, you're anti-Semite. Believing that it's the Word of God, because it's not. We are not Christian, or at least we're not supposed to be. But the church won't come out and say, we're not Joseph Smith's church. I had to make that clip. Because Nelson said it, but he said it in the context of the Book of Mormon passage about the two churches. And so that confused Mormons. And so everything they do, everything they say is a lie. simply because the Book of Mormon says we're in the learning of the Jews. You're supposed to use the learning of the Jewish interpretation on the Book of Mormon. You are not supposed to use Christian. You are not supposed to insert Jesus. So when Nelson tells you to think Jesus, think celestial, he's trying to brainwash you and hypnotize you using psychological manipulation from family services psychologists who counseled him to do this. This church is the great and abominable church. And Mormons won't leave. They have failed their second estate and chosen Lucifer's plan of happiness. Literally. Saturday's warriors fell. Am I going to have to find that clip and use that as the thumbnail picture? No, I'm going to use Nelson. And so, yes, what are they planning? What are they up to? Is it just that they get up there and lie and steal your money? No, there's something dangerous, and that's what I've been trying to warn you about all these years. They're going to murder you to get their kingdom back. Because Jesus isn't real. That 290, 291, guys. It's sad that YouTube will not allow me to design my channel right so that I can fix the weaknesses of all the new people who come to my videos. But this was the bicentennial year of Joseph Smith's second vision, and the church brushed it off as insignificant. Why? Well, verse 40 is why. Verse 40 tells Mormons who our Christ is, and that Mormons need to listen to him or they're going to die, be utterly destroyed, which is the warning of the Book of Mormon. Hearken to the Christ or be utterly destroyed, like the Nephites and the Jaredites and the other little groups throughout the Book of Mormon. People of King Noah, for example. And Mormons chose Lucifer. And so Mormons therefore chose the consequences. Mormons chose to be weapons of the church, to attack other people for not believing their false faith. Alma chapter 1 with Nehor. This is the first time that priestcraft has been enforced with the sword. Well, priestcraft is the forged document of Brigham Young, section 119. It's blatantly obvious it's not in harmony with the Book of Mormon. If it's not in harmony with the Book of Mormon, like the name of the church is, because Joseph Smith history, I mean, the church even comes out and gives it to Mormons, telling them in the Joseph Smith papers, we're not Joseph's church, we're a fraud. And Mormons won't just look at it. I do all the videos, and Mormons still deny and attack me with hate, death threats, and thumbs down. Mormons refuse to acknowledge the truth. And maybe it's because they don't believe that there is another option. That the learning of the Jews isn't real if the church can't be true as Christian. They go to the extremism. You know, I mean, sure, 600,000 have left the church in the last 2 years. I attribute that mostly to the church's failure to support Mormons during COVID. We were told for generations when I was young, have a year's supply of food. We're Latter-day Saints. The latter days are going to require us to have a year's supply of food. And there were times where I tried, even though it wasn't financially allowed, but I tried. And so then, boom, COVID. And we find out it's not a year's supply that we needed, it was 2 years or 3 years. The prophets failed us because they're false. They're not warning Mormons of the dangers because they're false and they caused them. And now Mormons are weapons, denialists, and zombies, puppets to the puppet masters. Mormons are incapable of defending the church. I mean, how do you defend the church? With a testimony that you know Jesus is real? Seriously? Have you seen him? Have you talked to him? Really? You haven't? It was a spiritual feeling, huh? And I'm supposed to believe that, you dumbass. God. And so, yeah, manifest the truth. Not a spiritual feeling. You missed that in Moroni. So, that's really it. I feel like I need to keep talking so I can bathe and shave. We won't. We'll make it quick today.